While the Frankish kingdom was reaching its apogee, Islam was also coming into being, one of the world's great religion. And this map shows the expansion of Islam as of 750 AD. Founded by the Prophet Muhammad in 622 AD, Islam made many converts because of its attractive simplicity and its promise that through prayer, a believer could access Allah, could access God directly without an intermediary priesthood. Now, with Islam, the religion and the government of that faith system were the same thing. There was not a separate. There was a theocracy. There was not a separate political government as opposed to a religious establishment. Both were combined into something called a caliphate. Okay? And this Islamic caliphate expanded inexorably. The dark orange area represents the Islamic world between 622 AD and Muhammad's death 10 years later. And then you can see it continuing to expand until by until by 711 AD, the Muslims crossed the Straits of Gibraltar and attacked and conquered the kingdom of the Visigoths in what is present-day Spain and Portugal. Well, how did the Muslim armies manage to gain control over this vast expanse of territory in just over a century? Well, that's actually a fairly that's a subject for a lecture in its own right, but I'll just sort of give you the basics. The first thing is that to be a Muslim means to be someone who strives and to strive spiritually in its present day use, and that was also the usage back then, but also to strive as a soldier, a literal soldier in the service of Allah. So that's one element. A second element is the way in which the Muslim Caliphate pursued the strategy of the acquisitive power, which is to say, they were able to expand geographically as rapidly as they did because they didn't take time to sort of stop and culturally consolidate the regions that they captured. These areas, the peoples in these areas were allowed to keep their own language, their own customs, their own manners, in many cases, their own religion. So that if you were a Christian living in an area conquered by the Islamic Caliphate, you could remain a Christian, or you could remain Jewish in many cases. You simply had to acknowledge the overlordship of the Islamic Caliphate. So that enabled rapid expansion. The other thing about it is that the Muslim armies were extraordinarily good at military adaptation. When they encountered the Persians, when they encountered the Byzantine Empire, they adopted weapon systems that were obviously going to be a benefit to them. This would have included siege engines like the catapult that they developed from the Byzantines, and also chainmail armor, and so on. And so this is another component in what made these Islamic armies as effective as they were and able to expand as rapidly as they did. And in addition to a ground component, another element in the rapid expansion of the Islamic armies was the mobile component, the cavalry component that they had. This is an artist depiction showing an encounter between a mounted Berber and a mounted Berber lancer and a mounted Berber archer. These are Arab lancers, Arab archers, with a Frankish light cavalryman in 732. In that year, a Muslim army under Abd al-Rahman advanced into the Merovingian kingdom. Whether he was undertaking an invasion or a raid is in dispute. And an invasion and a raid are two entirely different things. An invasion is mounted with the intention of capturing territory and holding on to it either permanently or at least until the end of a war. A raid is simply that. You sort of is you go into enemy territory for a limited period of time with a limited purpose and with the intention of leaving enemy territory after that limited purpose is accomplished. So, for example, when Confederate General Robert E. Lee uh, conducted a raid into Pennsylvania in 1863 as part of the Gettysburg campaign, he had no intention at all of capturing Pennsylvania. He was simply up there for a few months to achieve certain limited objectives, after which he intended to go back into Confederate Virginia anyway. Most historians think that the Muslim advance was a raid, probably for the sake of looting. But the traditional view for a long time was that it was an invasion intended to seize the Merovingian kingdom and then all of Western Europe. And in that sense, there is a belief that this Battle of Poitiers in 732 AD, which we'll be looking at in a bit, was in fact one of the great battles of world civilization, because had the Muslims won this battle, the argument goes, they would have overrun Christendom, destroyed it, and would have turned that whole region into one dominated by Islam. And incidentally, white supremacists today often look back on this moment, this Battle of Poitiers, as a pivotal moment in which what they would see as European civilization or white civilization held its own against this Islamic incursion. And so, in mythical terms, then this Battle of Poitiers has considerable significance down to this day. But in any event, Abdul Rahman invades the Merovingian kingdom, a raid, we think. Charles Martel moved to block the Muslim army, which had already advanced more than 300 miles into the kingdom before it could reach Tours, an important religious and cultural center. And because the battle that ensued occurred between the cities of Poitiers and Tours, it is known by both names, the Battle of Poitiers and the Battle of Tours. I'm going to stop here. I would like for you to watch a video. It's going to be on the other, it's going to succeed this part of the presentation, and then I'll pick up the story on the other side.